Okay. Well, hey folks, welcome to my Boss Bolshevism. I'm Drem,
I'm Marxist Hoodlum, also known as Azriel.
and we're gonna talk about some topics today. Follow up on some news that we've been following. Big topics like the big G side in Israel right now, uh, or isn't real. We're gonna be talking about um a whole mess of things. So uh, let me just pull up my notes here and we'll get it started.
Zionists, feel free to report this Twitch. I
Yeah.
won't take it to heart.
Yeah. If anything, it's a badge of honor for us. Um,
So, so I think what we should talk about first is the elephant in the room. The things that people have been talking about for I would say like 2 weeks or somewhere around there. The student protest,
mhm.
and the fight in UCLA, the counter protest. I will like to add that there's been reports that these counter protests, and you don't even really need to like investigate on this, because you see a lot of old dudes, and I'm not saying old dudes don't go to fucking universities, but you see a bunch of old dudes in there, and they're not of the
Mhm.
part of the students.
Yeah.
They've interviewed a couple people that they found. One guy actually had posted anti-Semitic stuff, and he was in the counter protest side, which is very interesting because he hates Jews, but I guess he hates Palestinians more than Jews, so he was on that side. Uh, I guess as a united front, and and my take on this is they a good defense is a good offense. I think there should have been more done by the Palestinian side. If these people I understand there's a possibility of getting expelled, but you already have that possibility by just doing what you were doing. If these people are bringing bear mace and other
Mm.
objects such as bats, I would I would highly suggest to bring Molotov cocktails and throw that shit at them in order to gain some gains
I
from.
mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, the way they tell it, it looks like the way a Zionist would tell how those protests went down. You'd think that the students were the ones responsible for, like, number one, the destruction and all the mayhem, but like, you know, everyone understands, like, you've seen the footage. Like, if there was any fighting um on the protesters side, it was in response, or rather self-defense, in response to the the um the mob kind of violence that the Zionists were encouraging and instigating. I remember seeing one clip of the student. The tents are all lined up. It's quiet in the middle of the night, and what happens from, like, halfway down the block, some Zionists lights up a um a firework, like mortar, the ones that can launch up in the air and explode. He
Yeah.
launches that thing into the encampment, and then uh watches it explode, and it wakes everybody up. So um but that's not even the worst part of what they did. There there were there was, what you call it, um uh, articles that came out later, and now that we're confirming, for example, that uh Mayor Eric Adams, and or the president of Colombia, and Mayor Eric Adams were in contact with each other and were like, um, rather, Eric Adams, I think, offered assistance with dealing with the protesters, and the president of Colombia accepted, and basically said, okay, yeah, take care of these protesters. And mind you, like the only thing these kids were doing was these were peaceful protests. There's no guns. There's no, no one has weapons. They don't have bats. All they're carrying are signs, masks, and kafiyas. That's it. And it was the police who came in, and the counter protesters who came in with bats and with the intent to um, instigate violence and cause the most harm uh, to those protesters. So if anyone asks who fired the first shot, it was not the Palestinian protesters or the pro-Palestinian protesters. It was absolutely unequivocally the Zionists.
The problem lies that no matter what, the Palestinians are at fault. They're the ones who instigated, said by the media, said by the counter protesters. This I understand this innocence, of these innocence in a way of these students that they're trying to make it peaceful, but you don't fight a war peacefully. I understand you're trying to stop the war, but countless times, again and again, and I think we talked about this off camera, like Israel, denied the ceasefire. Israel is
Mm-hmm.
now in the which is another topic we're going to get into soon, but Israel, excuse me, Israel is going into Rafah and displacing thousands and thousands of Palestinians. And the only way that this war is going to be won is through fighting and through, you know, fighting back. Make it known that we're a force to be reckoned with. We're not like gonna sit back. I understand like this comes from like the Martin Luther King mentality of like social justice that we have to be like take the beatings and be peaceful in order to get our message across and persevere in this country. But one of the things is that the only reason, one of the main reasons that that the Civil Rights Act was enacted was because Martin Luther King was shot and there were riots because of it, and they wanted to calm the black people like down, and that was the way that it was presented. Like it it was just um you may say, look, the peaceful protest did something which it might have done, like it might have given an effect in terms of like you killed this peaceful man who wasn't fighting or hurting anybody, and that
Mm-hmm.
made a big impact, especially in the black community. But at the end of the day, it was that bullet that killed him, and in order to calm those riots, they gave that law into effect. We need to like attack, like, and I'm not sure if like these colleges are worth. I know they invest in Israel, but there are other institutions that invest way more into Israel, way more money, uh, weaponry, ev- uh, anything you can imagine. And to focus on these colleges, I think I think it's not a good idea because what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna put yourself out there again to be beaten up by counter protesters and then be told that you were the instigator by the media and the counter protesters themselves? Like, do
Mm-hmm.
you want to be put in that position? Like, we we need a united front in the United States, and in order to do that, we need to come together in order to stop imperialism in its track, both imperialism in Israel, based on Nazism. So yeah.
Yeah. I think I think I understand what you're saying is that I'm too of the mind that like all peaceful protests are do is tell the state, um, or the state reacting to it that um oh it communicates, oh, you're peaceful, that means you're not going to use violence, but we're free to use, so that we are free to use violence to stop you, because your peaceful protests, you're going to want to stop the um and you don't like what they're saying, you don't like what they're protesting against, uh and that's their excuse for it. Versus if, let's say, the encampments all had, I know it's New York, but if, for example, they were like Portland or in Texas, this is just hypothetical, and the encampments had um, basically armed guards, kind of like facing outward, um, whether it be rifles or pistols. I think I think the counter protesters would have been more wary of fucking with them, basically. Um, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on Twitch, so I'm gonna I'm gonna not try to cuss so much. But yeah, they try to they would be less likely to mess with them. Police would be less likely to uh to mess with them. But I think that, honestly, I think that's a little bit idealistic, because if you've seen if you've seen any of the photos, there were snipers on buildings for these peaceful protesters ready to take them out. And when I'm seeing these images, I'm thinking, what, why the fuck are you here? you know like it just demonstrates the level of desperation I think the state um was experiencing, or just the fact that it's like the state's doing this just because it can. you know and when I say state, I mean in general, like, as a form of the current form of government that's overseeing the area that these protesters were in. But another key factor for these protests was because Columbia is unique amongst universities, because it has a um, it's the largest real estate owner in the state of New York. Um, and on top of that, they also have plans to develop a another like university hub, like a satellite university in Israel. I think in Jerusalem, to like further encourage, academic achievements and goals. But it's like, why are you, like, if you truly were committed to, if you really true if you truly were committed to academic integrity and excellence, why back the superpower um in the region that's bombed all the universities, all the universities, all the hospitals in Gaza uh have been bombed. There's none left. Kids are going to school in tent cities. The refugee camps, what little teachers there are, they're there to, they're they're trying as hard as they can. They're trying to get these kids educated. And it's like a lot of the attacks have happened on school grounds um during times when it's like most effective, or when Israel thinks that their attacks are going to be most effective for dropping their bombs and all that stuff. So all of that mixed together, it it kind of tells you why the protests happen, you know, among why they specifically happen at Columbia, but also why it was so important that they do it. Now, to bring it back to peaceful versus um, nonviolent protests versus violent ones. For the nonviolent ones, again, it's just reiterating to your enemy, it's telling your enemy, I don't intend to cause harm, uh, to myself or anyone, or anything or anyone, and I won't do that. So I'm protesting peacefully. I'm just here to to scream and shout and and do that, and that's all well and good. Uh, but the only thing what changed it to a violent protest was again the response from the protesters to the counter protesters who had who'd instigated that violence. They went in there with the intention to disrupt. They did, and then used it as further justification to call in like special operations units and the police to, you know, to enter certain buildings and escort these kids uh, out of their holding places. So yeah, without honestly without saying we can't really say too much else of like what we would like to happen without getting like banned or something like that. So it's kind of we're kind of we got
Well,
our hands tied a little bit.
well, I think we should focus on our efforts into identifying Mossad agents in the United States and taking them out.
That's one way for sure. Doxing Mossad agents, making just being aware that these people have addresses, they have names, they have these people. They're not taking it easy on you. They have they have zero intention. A lot of these Zionists and their apologists, they have zero intention to treat you with kid gloves. They're going full force, all the fucking time. There's they're not going to take it easy. So it's important to remember, OPSEC. Um, if you're if you take any of the advice that you may have heard elsewhere on the internet, take that advice and be smart with it. Pretend, act as though you're like the underground. You like it's minority tactics. Like you're the oppressed class, so you have to hide. You're kind of like hiding your power level from from the state. So make your reach far, but be discreet.
Yeah, I agree.
So that being said, uh, full support for anybody who does decide to protest. And that's not to say these protests haven't been successful. There have been other universities that um, that did successfully vote for like BDS in their own schools, and it did happen. I think University of Wisconsin was one of them. Uh, I'm not too clear on the details, but there were schools um, who had success during these protests, and really from what I've heard about it, because I've heard from people who've spoken anonymously about Columbia and stuff, is that in order for them to divest and boycott and all that stuff, it would require Columbia to basically rethink its entire raison d'etre, like its entire reason for being, because it's basically it's a business, as most universities are. They're just businesses who sometimes offer classes. They're just a business or a bank, really, but what's the fucking difference? So there has been success, and I'm glad that there was success. That's a positive thing. But when the state wants to oppress you that bad because it takes into account the interests of the donors and the board of directors before anything else, then it is, no surprise to anybody here. It isn't. You are facing an uphill battle. That being said, yours is the moral journey and the moral cause, and victory victory will follow us. I'll say that much. So, um, so that being said, um, hats off to the protesters. Much love. If you can't protest but you like to donate, find ask around, find people who are connected to the movement who can help you get your money to where it's needed in Gaza, mostly for food or water, um, and toiletries and stuff like that. They're in need of everything. It's a famine out there, and an intentional one at that. Um, so we got to if you can't protest, donate. If you can't donate, spread the word about protests, or share. Uh, uh follow the uh, uh ¿cómo se dice? Um, follow the journalists working in Gaza, literally risking their lives every single second of every day to get you the information about what's happening. It's has to be like a surreal experience documenting a genocide in real time. And I hope it is my firm hope that they come out of it alive. Um, so um, so that's that. Moving on to the next topic, we're gonna go over. Um, did you all hear about? Did you all hear about RFK Jr. having a worm eat part of his brain?
I heard something medically happened, but I didn't know it was a worm that ate half of his brain.
No, it wasn't half. You'd think though, right?
I was gonna say like, damn, like, how is he still like standing up?
If this was him, if this is him with half a functioning brain, I have to give him more props than anything. I can't really. I was like, okay, yeah, no, your beliefs are off, but the fact that you're able to still stand upright and not just like drool 24/7 because you've been lobotomized, is 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 uh is great. But no, he's apparent. They found my understanding is they found a dead worm, so it's already been there, and it had eaten parts of his brain. They didn't release a percentage, they just said like it ate part of his brain, so that's what they're rolling with. um and I was like, well, I guess it explains his shitty like, far be it for me to like let this guy off the hook for all the stuff that he's done and said, because I don't care for him at all, uh but as a joke, as a joke, I'm thinking like either that worm starved for sure, or he's quite the asshat. It would explain his view on things, but he's a shit person anyway. Like, yeah,
It's kind of ironic because like everything happens to the Kennedys. Like a bunch of shit happens to them. Like
yeah,
it's
man.
disastrous shit. Like it's like they're cursed for eternity.
They're like, yeah, they're like cursed magnets, man. They must have they need an exorcism. They need to call Jujutsu Kaisen, uh um and and yeah, get that stuff figured out. They need exorcisms. Um but yeah, that's it for the it's weird though, like all three presidential candidates are Zionists, whether they admit it or not. Kennedy is an admitted Israel supporter. Like nothing that he's going to do is going to change. Like the policy towards the Middle East is going to be um, maybe like Trump light, you know, if not like whatever Biden's doing, it's going to be a continuation of the same Zionist policies that have been enacted since since they got the lobbying arm started. Um,
What what
so
whatever happened to Cornel West?
he's still in it. I'm saying like I don't mean to say that the three like I'm saying like the three top contenders at the moment are all Zionists. But Cornel West, to my knowledge, he's still in the game. He's not dropped out. Um, Claudia and Karina from the Party of Socialism and Liberation are still in the game. Um, if there's anybody that is worth putting your weight behind, I wish the choices were between Cornel West and Claudia, or the Claudia and Karina from the PSL. Um, Me personally, I've gone back and forth about it, but I think I think I'd put my weight behind the PSL for sure. Um, and that's that. Like as that's coming from somebody who, as soon as Cornel West announced his candidacy, I was gung ho. I was like, yes, absolutely, you'll get my vote. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. They're roughly the same on in uh terms of campaign promises and outlook. Um, so I'd feel in a much safer place with both of them in there. With either one of them in there, I should say. But I know that's not how it works. Um, so Cornel West is still in. We're all good.
Sorry, I'm just adding, I'm just tweeting out this live stream to uh Twitter.
No, you're good. You're good. Um, oh,
But
also, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say like yeah, I mean I'm very skeptical with Cornel West. He's someone that has many degrees, and that's not bad, excuse me for a minute. That's not bad, but how well connected is he with the workers of America? That's my question. And to me, it's none. It's
Mm,
um there's this revolutionary communist called let me blank, just give me a minute. So like a lot of times they use this as a derogatory. They call you a blanquism. Because it was Augusta Blank uh was a revolutionary socialist, a legendary martyr figure of French radicalism, imprisoned in all for more than 33 years. His disciples, the Blanquists, played an important role in the history of the workers' movement even after his death. He believed that a small workers a group could overtake the government, and he focused heavily on the workers, always being with the workers and organizing with them, which is recently is something that I am looking into into adapting into my own practice, because I mean he's not wrong, because there in order to get like all the working class together, it is a very first the material conditions must be there. The material conditions may manifest itself if Trump gets elected and he becomes a dictator, like he said.
mm-hmm,
Like if he becomes a dictator, then the workers that were supporting Trump might not support him so much, depending on what he brings out to the table and what he dishes out to the table. Remember,
mm-hmm,
Trump is not like a one is not what's the term, like a Trump is like a two-sided coin. Like he'll call like Kim Jong Un like a little bitch, and then like he'll invite him over to the United States, which I
mm-hmm,
greatly loved. and then commemorate him. He'll praise him, and he still does
Mm-hmm.
to this day. And even China, sometimes he talks shit about China, but he's even said that, China and Russia is not the problem. It's the government, the deep state, that is the problem. Now we keep with that rhetoric. Maybe those material conditions aren't there for a revolution because there is satisfaction to the workers that are behind him. But if it turns out to be different, then uh, joining all the workers and uniting all the workers and organizing them is more easier than as of right now, because of American individualism,
Mm-hmm.
we have this notion of like, oh, like, yeah, let me, not for the collective but for the individual, like, let me get rich, let me get like a nice car, let me get all this stuff, like, don't
Mm-hmm.
participate in the movement and try and better the country. And that's a problem in the United States, a heavy, heavy, heavy problem.
Yeah, it's the the uplifting of the individual as opposed to the community for sure. But going back to one of your earlier points, it's um that's kind of like the marketing genius of Trump, is that he will say things that are true. And I have to remind myself every time I listen to um uh normally not really not myself, it's really other people, but I do remind myself. I was like, okay, this person is saying all the right things. They're they're saying this, some of these things with conviction, and it makes it seem sincere. But what is their response to, like, how do they plan to respond to these inequities, the inequality? What's the response? And if it doesn't honest, if it doesn't line up with a materialist perspective, there's no, nothing comes to, there's no material aid coming to help the working class. If in fact they go the other way, they demonize immigrants and other minorities, they and other minority classes inside the U.S. Then of what use is that political ideology? Or at least I know when listening to them that, oh, I'm listening to a fraud right now. This person does not know what they're talking about, and they're just using it as a jumping off point for their own political platform. Often communists, they're like, when people equivocate communists and fascists, I'll say that there's only really one area where that's correct, and then that is that they both um they both acknowledge that, at least in this country right now, they both acknowledge that there's something wrong, whether it be um, the massive inequality, the lack of affordability for of housing and food, and regular staples that one needs to just live, not live luxuriously, but just live and and maintain a decent lifestyle. Um, uh, but it's more often than not the fascist that is co-opting the language of the left in the same way that liberals do, to um to kind of launder their nefarious thoughts and ideologies. So it's
I,
like, yeah, everything's wrong, so what we need to do is kill all the immigrants, versus a leftist who would say, yeah, there's a lot of things wrong, and what we need to do is put control of the means of production in the hands of the workers. We need to issue more. Need to issue debt relief. We need to issue, um, stipends for food and stuff. We need to centralize the production of all most commodities, if not all commodities, in this country, to in a way that will benefit the environment while also meeting the demands the of the workers and the people in it.
I think the thing about Trump is that he actually, like, what the people want, he actually does it in terms like he doesn't have an ideology. Like most other politicians, they have an ideology, and no matter if their constituents are saying like, "Don't do that," we don't want that, they still stick to the ideology. And a lot of times is basically because of like business, because they're being paid by
Mm-hmm.
corporations. Uh, all these all these like corporations paying them off to give their view of what law is, while Trump necessarily like I wouldn't put it past him that he would do that, but he does listen to what like the people want, and he does give it to them. And unfortunately, like the unfortunate truth is most of the people have a problem with immigrants. Immigrants have a problem with immigrants.
Yeah,
Like
it's true.
yeah, like they don't want, they see all those people coming in like walking from like country to country, all like ready to cross the border, and everybody panics like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
like these
Mm-hmm.
people are gonna take our resources, while those people are working low paying jobs that Americans don't work at all and don't want
Mm-hmm.
to work. You know, these people are in the sun like 12 hours, or I don't know, 10 and 8 hours in the sun, like
Mm-hmm.
picking fruits and stuff, you know, and there's a big problem of dehydration and stuff like that. Like imagine if they have to go to the bathroom. Where are they gonna go to the bathroom? Like all these issues, and they're demonizing these people that are low paying jobs as if they're gonna come in and they're gonna be like big business people, and like are gonna like take all the resources from the Americans and all the jobs that the Americans want. And it's unfortunate. And one of the other things that goes with it is the beliefs of people. Now I don't understand like what the problem is with like a lot of Hispanic people, because a lot of Hispanic people religiously and like belief wise are in par with American conservatives. And I don't understand what they're afraid of. I can understand when if it's like, you know, like a group of Muslims coming in and they're like, oh, we don't want Muslims because they're gonna like, you know, infiltrate America and like make America Muslim. But
Mm-hmm.
with Hispanic people, I do not understand that logic, and it's very important to see these contradictions of reasoning and logic in the conservative movement and even in the liberal movement. So I think we
Well,
should have.
I
Yeah.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I think the same thing with the Hispanics in this country see them have kind of been semi assimilated with with the culture, especially like for example in Miami. They Miami is in and of itself like a microcosm, a little snow globe of enclosed ecosystem of Hispanic exceptionalism, I guess, if you want to call it that. Uh, and that they are the accept, like they've enjoyed, at least most of the Cubans down there have enjoyed. Um, I say down there like I'm not in it, but uh, most of the people there have enjoyed literally being the exception to the rule when it comes to like the wet foot, dry foot policy that's since been discontinued. Uh, they've enjoyed they've enjoyed so much that even other Hispanic that other Hispanic immigrants like Venezuelan, Chilean, Argentinian, any South American immigrant making their way from uh, their country of origin over to here that they don't enjoy, and so they basically said like, hey, you want to like continue to have um you want to continue to have like these things, like yeah, just vote for us. The same people who raped and pilfered the land in Cuba was the same people who were sold like lucrative um sugar plant contracts and stuff too here in Florida. So the people who were running the mob down in Cuba were definitely the ones helping were there and helping spread and maintain the status quo of like, Cuba is this super cheap vacation destination, at the expense of all the country folk there. They were the ones they were rewarded for their loyalty, um, and recompensed and compensated handsomely through contracts and stuff here
I
in the states.
I think there's like a there's like a not like a hidden gene, but like a hidden like mindset of these Anglo-Saxon Americans that they know that because they pillaged the lands of the Native Americans and they got rid of the Native Americans to a point that the population is low and the Native Americans really have no right and are given land and sometimes their land are taken away or they're giving like shitty land. They think that these immigrants are going to come and do the same thing because that's how they operate, that's how
Oh.
they think. So it's very ironic. It's something good to research up on and
Mm-hmm.
just see all these viewpoints and see what's going on because we're not deficit in terms of like land in the United States. We have plenty of land for people. And again, it's like this whole mentality of they're gonna change the culture, they're gonna change our religion, they're gonna change whatever. It's it's unfortunate, and it needs to be combated because a lot
They
of these.
they've adopted the same white supremacist. Sorry to interrupt. They've adopted the same. I know what you're saying is like they've adopted the same white supremacist thinking that the settlers in this country have, because they too are in a way settlers. You know, they were, you know, at least the Cubans kicked off, um, uh, were kicked off their own land, with the reasoning being, like, hey, if you're not going to be part of the revolution or like your collaborator, then you know you're free to leave, but we don't want you here. And then they're given reign to over here in the U.S. to uh, they're given radio stations, TV stations, all to help spread um, Cuban culture and propaganda.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna say something, but I completely forgot. It just blanked me out. It was what I was talking about. The whole white supremacist thing. It's I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna say something in regards to it. Um, but
That was my bad, dude. I stepped over you hard.
no, it's all right. When you stepped over, I still remembered it, but like a couple seconds in, it just went away because
It
I
was
thought about it.
fleeting.
I thought about
Yeah.
it too hard. Um, so yeah, I think for now that's all I got to say on the subject.
Mm. Okay. That's cool.
Oh, now I
Uh,
remember. Now I remember. Now I remember. And I think I said in another podcast, in this same show, most of these people are coming from capitalist countries. The amount of
mm,
refugees from Cuba is not comparable from other places that are capitalistic, have been ravaged by the United States and the CIA because they were trying to become socialists and they were destroyed, and now this is what you're getting back. This is America. This is your fault. Like the government, this is your fault. That you're getting back what you put in, and now people are coming in because they need land. For example, and I think I remember I talked about this extensively in another podcast, but the most of the Mexicans that come in, which is a majority of them, are land agricultures, and since the what's it called? The deal made between Canada and United States and Mexico, which was updated to a new name. So it doesn't matter if I don't remember the old name, which basically said that the United States was going to supply agricultural food, like food and all that stuff, to Mexico, while Mexico was going to supply to the United States something else. This
Mm-hmm.
this made a lot of people lose their jobs, and this created the Zapatista movement of these I would say farmers or agricultures who took that land back from the government in response to that. And
Mm.
this is the reason why people are going to the United States. You created these problems, and now you're vilifying these people. You know, I think these representatives, they need a to be paid way less. They should be public servants. They shouldn't be even paid anything. Like, you want to represent people, get a job and represent as well. Like, be part of the working class. But if not, don't
Mm-hmm.
even come in close to talking about the people.
Yeah, I've heard similar arguments, and I tend to agree with that. That the lowest that the representatives from each state should be paid the uh like the lowest they should be paid the lowest minimum wage. Um, they should be paid the minimum wage of their state, and um and um and be forced to, yeah, like, work for that, and just to see how quickly things will change. Be like, oh yeah, maybe maybe $25 an hour for the minimum wage isn't that unreasonable. Like, suddenly that becomes the most reasonable thing on earth, right? It's like when your pocketbook is um when your pocketbook is the one being hammered, suddenly all things are possible, as opposed to thinking communally before coming in, and saying like we should just raise it because this is a good thing for workers. If your whole goal of joining politics is just to enrich yourself, there's plenty of legal ways to do that, absolutely. um, but if it's just to enrich yourself um, without, lending a hand or try at least making a good, a sincere concerted effort to help out the working class, I'm sorry, but you don't deserve to be in politics. Least of all, you don't deserve to be a representative. I can't I can't back that.
Yeah, they're way out of touch with the American people, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah, but water's wet, so you know.
What it was what.
um
I think we have enough time for just one more.
yeah, briefly, kind of touching on our first subject, which is that May 15th was Nakba Day, or Nakba Remembrance Day, I believe.
Yeah.
So it kicked off, that's when all of this started. For those of you who don't know, Nakba means, roughly translates to the catastrophe, and for Israel, or for the Palestinians, I'm sorry, um, the catastrophe is still ongoing. The Nakba never ended. It's been a 75-year long uh, expulsion, and what we're seeing now is the result of that, of all of that. Um, so if you you know continue to spread the word, continue to show your support, and if you're of any particular faith, send some messages up to the big guy, I guess, um, on their behalf. Um, Next topic: the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court okays civil asset forfeiture. So, for those not aware, um, civil asset forfeiture is basically means that if a cop pulls you over, and let's say you have even a $2,000 in a duffel bag, or if you have any amount of money, or items, and a police officer pulls you over and suspects that these items and this money could have uh, could have been used or was used without in illicit activities or in crimes and such, they can uh, they can take it off of you um, and hold it, and there's not really much you can do about it. So they don't have to. They can seize it. That's what I'm saying. They can seize your vehicle. They can seize your vehicle. They can seize your um, the money. Um, and yeah, there's not a lot you can do about it. So many people have lost. It's legalized thievery. That's basically what it is. Um, because they don't have to bring evidence. They don't have to do any of the work that you would require of a, for a normal uh um what's the word I'm looking for, like for a normal crime and the way you would process that, you have your evidence and stuff like that. There's no by the book here. The book just says you can take their stuff, and they can try to get it back, but chances are they're not going to. So, and the Supreme Court okayed that, and this should come as surprises to nobody because you know when you think of who's on the Supreme Court, um, you know Clarence Thomas and others, they don't really answer to anybody, and they're the ones least likely to be affected by this kind of ruling. So it's a little bit more bougie than people think it is. The Supreme Court has never been this neutral arbiter of justice, and it's as we're taught and brought up to believe it is, and it should people should stop thinking about it that way. These A lot of these people, a lot of the people that get put on here, the only interest that they have is that of their personal interests, moving their careers forward, and also enriching, uh, in some cases, enriching themselves and um, those of their supporters, as we know with Clarence Thomas and Harlan Crow, uh, who uh, who essentially bought and paid for uh, Clarence Thomas and his decisions on the court.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this in another podcast again, but when I went to law school, they told me specifically, like, and I already knew, but like they told me specifically, yeah, the Supreme Court is highly ideological, like highly ideological. Though what they tell you that it's supposed to be like neutral is bullshit, and you learn that through cases, whether it be liberal sightings and conservative sightings. The only thing I gotta say about the Supreme Court right now is I'm loving the gun legislation, the gun results that are happening. They're giving us a lot of freedoms with our weapons. But other than that, everything else is pretty shitty. Uh,
Yeah.
I would love to give an analysis on the Supreme Court, but honestly, I haven't been on that grind in a while since I graduated law school in 2020. So not even sure who's like if there's like I think the last guy was the rapist, right? That went in.
Oh, no, the last he was the one. No, he was the one before the most current one. Uh, the most current, Katanji Brown Jackson, KBJ. She was the most recent inductee to um to the Supreme Court, and yeah, she's actually, she grew up and went to school in and around my area ish. Um, so like the local high school, or I think the high school that she went to was like put posters up of like they were proud of her, is what I'm saying, as they should be.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also the same high school that Jeff Bezos went to.
Uh, damn.
So, little fun fact for y'all there.
Maybe we need to get rid of that high school.
No comment. Um, I don't blame the high school so much as I do like again the
But
system that.
I mean, Jeff Bezos, bro, like they they groomed him into fucking crazy ass eccentric multi-billionaire who's like, and I say this with hypocritical. Like I am very hypocrite. I am very hypocrite. Sorry.
Mm-hmm,
I'm a very hypocrite because I use Amazon a lot. I use Amazon for everything. I like the fact that they ship on Sundays. I like the fact that I can get some items the same fucking day. And unfortunately, that is due to a worker exploitation. Like
mm-hmm.
it is something that I struggle with a lot because that's work exploitation. If you think they're just grabbing a bunch of people and being like, "Oh no, you just do this for like a couple hours and then we'll put in another guy." No, they're gonna have some guy working 12 hours, fucking 12 hours, fucking the whole day doing that shit. Like,
12
so
hours and walking the equivalent of I want to say it's like 3 or 4 football fields a day, just like walking around their warehouse. Like whatever, like you're getting, not only are you getting your 10,000 steps in every day, you're probably getting 3, 4, 5 times that. Um, the Chris Smalls, who spearheaded the creation of the first Amazon union. I haven't heard too much from him in a minute, but he's um, he detailed extensively the kind of conditions that these people were operating under. Everyone's been made aware of the piss bottles that the drivers use, um, just to make sure that their delivery quotient doesn't go down. Like they can't even take breaks to go pee because it's going to hurt their performance. Versus, that's not something you have to do with you know uh, at UPS. But also UPS, they don't have a lot of uh, they don't have like AC in their cars and stuff. That being said, however, their most recent contract, they agreed to put AC, install air conditioning in all the service vehicles, and they've all been given a lot of I think back pay, and they've made huge strides for their as far as their demands for equal treatment and better pay, which only goes to show that you should unionize as much as possible, and don't let anybody tell you different. If there's someone who's anti-union, get them fired, and then bring in a person who's pro-union, and then vote on creating that union. Um, just some advice for y'all in case anyone's thinking about it.
all right. I think I think it's time to end the show. So thank y'all for listening in. Uh, we'll see you later on. My name is Marcus Hoodlum, also known as Azriel,
I'm Drem.
and goodbye.
See ya.